We live in a twilight world. Let's do a video. It might be a quick one. It might be a long one. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's going to be, I guess, a continuation or a follow-up to a recent video I did called Flood Back Better, where I was talking about the flooding in Spain, which you may or may not have heard of depending on where you are in the world. Obviously, I'm in England, I'm in the UK, it was quite big in the mainstream media. If you lived in the USA or Australia or Asia, maybe you probably didn't hear about it. I don't know. But so yeah, let's just start on with Spain, shall we? Let's do a bit of a recap. So, we're going to talk about illusion warfare, and we're going to talk about weather warfare, weaponized weather, which for me is a bit of a tricky topic because I can never really prove or disprove it. When it comes to humans, well, I use the term humans loosely, yeah. When it comes to people within this matrix, the matrix of two X's, playing out a role, performing within the live action theatre, I can obviously prove it's illusion warfare all day long. Weather, I don't know, because essentially with weather, what we're assuming is somewhere in this realm, they've got some kind of technology that we're assuming can shoot some, I don't know, microwaves, ionic, disruptive waves up into the atmosphere and cause certain weather to happen in certain locations. It's a very interesting topic, but yet again, it's something I can't really prove. A bit like the Earth being flat or round. I don't really give too much energy to it because I can't really prove or disprove it. And for all we know, weather could just be what it is, being caused by the Earth itself. Maybe Mother Earth herself is in control of the weather and she's doing these attacks on humans because that's her job. I don't know. She's sending a message. I don't know. I don't like the idea of us instantly assuming, the truth of concept, that we instantly assume that there's a group of humans like the Illuminati that has this great power. Because the problem is, if too many people believe that, it becomes true. Whether it is true or not, enough people believe it becomes true. So I'm happy to talk about it, but there's no way I'm going to consent to fully believing in it. There's always a question mark before it and after it when it comes to weather warfare. So anyway, let's get back to it. Spain. Here we are, Spain. Okay. So maybe 2 weeks ago now, there was some seriously heavy flooding in the Valencia region. Valencia, the city itself, was okay. It was mainly around this area here that got smashed to pieces. Now, yes, I did go to Spain and I did have good intentions to go and visit Valencia, but I landed in Alicante. The weather was great, so I just stayed there and had a holiday instead. What can I say? I worship the sun. So, yeah, my theory was, or is, my speculation is, if they are doing weather warfare, it would be because the Spanish economy was doing really well. A few months ago, I seen in the news that, the crisis that was happening in Spain was that they were producing too much energy. Now, only in our upside down, twisted world would we consider a country producing more energy than it needs a crisis. But yeah, that's what it is. And the crisis they were trying to say was that if the energy companies are making more energy than they need, they're not going to make a profit, and then there's no reason for them to exist. Of course, they never actually consider the people of Spain themselves having cheap energy, or people around the world having cheap energy. Of course, that's never in the discussion, because they don't give a fuck about everyday people. All they care about is these big energy corporations making profit. So yeah, Valencia, huge floodings. The big controversy and the kind of conspiracy is that, the weather alert system knew that there was going to be huge there was going to be a big impact of flooding, and didn't bother to warn anyone, right? This was the big hoo-ha. Now, this is where, in my opinion, it ties into illusion warfare, and I only kind of realized this as the days went on, right? Because, yeah, they didn't let the people know that there was going to be flooding. And even like I can't remember if it's the president of that region or the mayor of that region was out there on social media saying, yeah, don't worry, it's not going to be that bad. Now, the rain landed, weirdly enough, not a drop of rain landed in the areas that were hit. It landed over here, and it was, I think, a year's worth of rain in 8 hours. And by the time it went down the mountains and got to here, it had reached the speeds of a freight train and just smashed through, knocking out bridges and smashing up cars and stuff. And of course, this has obviously caused a lot of damage, and it means now that a lot of money is going to have to be borrowed to repair the Valencia region. This place here, Paya Porta, was what they're calling the ground zero. It's got hit the most. You might have seen it in the news. This is where the king of Spain went there, and people were throwing mud at him and stuff. I think this place here as well, Picanha, was hit quite bad. Yeah. But like I said, this now would knock economy Spain back to where they want it. Yeah, keep it in a debt-based economy. So if they're making obviously too much money and they're producing too much energy, something needs to happen that's going to knock them down a peg or two or put them in debt. Because you see, Spain's not the sort of country that's going to get into a war, is it? Yeah? See, like England, every war that's going, England will stick its fucking nose in, and they'll play the good guys on the world stage, but behind closed doors, the City of London will be supporting both sides. They'll be supporting the terrorists and the so-called good guys. Every fucking war that happens on the planet, England will stick its nose in, right? So England's always going to have, or United Kingdom is always going to have a war debt. We've only just paid off World War II, but no doubt we're going to be paying off the Afghanistan war for another 100 years, the Ukraine war, which we're funding, we're going to be paying off for 100 years. So, you know, keeping Britain in poverty, easy. Britain always gets into a war. Britain is still trying to play on the world stage, is playing the role of the policeman, the world police. Spain ain't like that. So how do you knock Spain's economy down? Weather warfare. Yeah? And like I said, I'm not consenting to this being true. I'm just speculating. This is just theory. I mean, at this point, I think they've already borrowed, 15 billion so far. I think 10 billion from the EU as like an emergency crisis loan. They've borrowed 3 billion from themselves. And I heard someone recently say that overall it's going to be about 30 billion to restore Valencia, right? So there you go. You've kept Spain now in debt. So whatever they're making in energy, you can, in profit, wipe it off, because now they're paying for the rebuilding of Valencia. Now, the illusion warfare side of it, which initially I thought didn't really exist, but now I realise does kind of exist, where people were so angry across Spain and across the world that the alert system, you know, wasn't alerting citizens quick enough. Now, every time there's a bit of rain, they are now alerting people as if it's going to be bad, as bad as Valencia was, you see, but it's not. So after Valencia, there was some flooding in Barcelona, not as bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, flooding-wise, maybe about a 2. But because of Valencia, now the mainstream media and the alert system made out, it was like 11 out of 10 on the scale of severeness. Even though it wasn't. That flooding was over and done within a day. Yeah, it was flooding. It was flooding, of course. Flooding's not good. Flooding's shit. Nobody likes a bit of flash flooding. But it drained away within a day. But the mainstream media made out it was as bad as the stuff in Valencia when it wasn't. And of course, all the everyday people that have now been recruited into the mainstream media via TikTok and stuff, that they make all these TikTok videos, the internet was flooded with TikTok videos of people filming flooding in the Valencia airport. Now, this flooding only lasted about an hour. I mean, when it was at its worst. But because you had so many people with a camera in their hand filming it, for the next 5 days, the mainstream media would kind of slowly put out these videos as if that level of flooding was happening for 5 days in Barcelona, when it didn't. You understand? So now, it's now crossing over into the world of illusion warfare. Yeah? And what they'd done was, when you think about it, it's very clever, because the people of Valencia were out on the streets protesting that the people need to know when it's going to rain in future. So that's now consenting to the Spanish government, whenever there's a bit of flooding, making out it's going to be as bad as Valencia when it's not. Recently as well, after Barcelona, we then had Malaga. Same again. Yeah, it was flooding. Yeah, flooding's not good. Flash flooding is not fun for anyone, especially people that live there. But it drained away, okay? It was over and done within a day. Like, I live in the UK. We get flash flooding here all the time. Shitload of rain happens in one day. The drains fill up, so you've got about a foot of water in the shallow parts of wherever you live. But it's gone within a day. It's not that big of a deal. But like I said, because of the events in Valencia, now people are going to make out it's that bad whenever there's flooding. Now we're crossing into the world of illusion warfare, yeah? And now that is illusion warfare. And of course, the algorithms and the systems that run social media, that run YouTube, that run Instagram, that run Twitter, that run all of the others, if you're the clown that gets out TikTok, gets out your phone and films a bit of flooding when it's at its worst, the algorithms will push that to the front, make it go viral, and will make out that it's at a Valencia-esque level of flooding when it's not. You see, you get where I'm coming from here. Now, of course, everyone's pushing climate change, right? This is gold, and absolute gold for the climate change agenda. When the internet is constantly being flooded with, ironically, the internet is being flooded with videos of flooding. Yeah? And in many ways, the flooding and how this is playing out is a bit like Ukraine, right? With the war. So let's go over to Ukraine. So in the early days of Ukraine, when, you know, we had the Battle of Kiev, we had Mariupol, the internet was flooded with all of these videos. Yeah, and it was later claimed that the vast majority of them were fake, or from a different war, or from a different time period. But it didn't matter, right? Because it got everyone's attention. Some of these videos were people playing airsoft. Some of these videos were from 2014. Some of them were just regular military parades. Some of them were from the Chechen War and all this kind of stuff, right? And people were just overlaying kind of sound effects and stuff. And, you know, it created the illusion that the war was 10 times worse than it actually was. Yeah? I think it's 97% of Ukraine is not seeing any signs of war whatsoever. And actually, and this was yet again admitted but whispered by the mainstream media, during the early days of the war, 98% of social media videos coming out of Ukraine were nice, normal, everyday things. People walking their dogs, people going out for dinner, birthday parties, little kids playing on the swings, all this kind of stuff. But with who was ever running the algorithms, all we were seeing was this kind of it was portraying this idea that it was raining missiles, that it was like the opening scenes of Saving Private Ryan. Yeah? So now, whenever there is some sort of incident in the tiny little places that there is a bit of conflict allegedly going on, people automatically assume back to 2022 that it's like that. Yeah, they have this picture now in their mind's eye. Yeah? And it's the same happening with the flooding in Valencia, which at this current moment, so today's the 19th of November, 2024, it's kind of died down a little bit. Funny enough, Ukraine is back in the mainstream media, but we'll talk about Ukraine in a different video. Now, weirdly enough, over here in Sicily, they're apparently having a drought. Allegedly. Yet again, I don't know. I don't know how much of this is true or how much of this is illusion created by the media. But if you go into YouTube and just write drought, Sicily, you'll see there's a lot of videos where people in Sicily, yeah, they're basically relying on the government now to deliver water to where they live. Bottled water and water to the systems, because their main rivers are drying up and stuff. They're having a drought and it's quite bad. Might be worth me checking out in the future. That'd be a very interesting one to see how bad it was. Now, the last kind of videos I've seen about the drought were about 8 months ago. So they've not been speaking about it lately, which means it might be over. See, the mainstream media will tell you there's a drought, but they will never tell you when it's over. Because they're not interested in giving it that side of the story, are they? So yeah, now back to weather warfare. Is weather being used as a way to control this reality, as a weapon, weaponized weather? If you was to ask me, I would say Iceland has something to do with the weather. It's a very strange country. I've been there. In World War II, Britain essentially took over Iceland. I wouldn't say they conquered it because they didn't really have any resistance, but they were worried the Nazis were going to take it, so they just went over, sent a task force over and took over Iceland, right? And it was called Operation Fork. Now, when I went to Iceland, and I might include some pictures in this presentation, whether or not I do or not, I don't know. It's whether I can be bothered to edit this video or just put it straight out. But when I went to Iceland, I was checking out these volcanoes and stuff that were being used as a way to control the future of Iceland. I went to the Icelandic National Opera House or National Theatre. I don't know I can't remember which one it was. But there's like a museum next to it, and all of their symbols are tuning forks. So Operation Fork in World War II, their symbol seems to be a tuning fork. And when I think of weather, I think of some sort of tuning fork-esque weapon that can send vibrations or sound waves out that may or may not, bounce off the firmament, if there is a firmament, I don't know. But, Iceland doesn't have a military, right? Iceland, in many ways, Iceland is quite similar to Ireland, right? So Ireland has a military, but it's a defence force. It's not really an offensive military. It can't really go to another country and conduct operations outside of Ireland. It's there to defend Ireland, right? And the thing about Ireland is there's an Anglo-Island Pact, and a lot of the food for Britain, as in farm foods, vegetables, beef, chicken, milk, comes from Ireland, right? Ireland provides a lot of food for Britain. And in return, Britain offers Ireland military protection, right? If anyone dared try and come near Ireland, obviously the Royal Navy and stuff is protecting Ireland, right? That's the pact. And the same goes for Iceland. Like, Iceland gives Britain a lot of the fish, right? If you're having fish in the UK, there's a good chance this comes from Iceland, right? Because Iceland dominates the fishing region here, yeah? Years ago, there was the Cod Wars, where Iceland and Britain had a bit of a disagreement about the fishing rights, and they gave most of the fishing rights to Iceland. And in return, Britain buys that fish and then offers Iceland military protection. Now, Iceland somehow is in the Jeff Nations, which is 10 nations, military nations led by Britain, that are supposedly, set up to counter Russian aggression and so on. But they don't have a military. They've just got a really aggressive coast guard. Like, their coast guard ships look like Navy ships. And, I think the real reason is Britain, this is part of, you could say this is part of Britain, and this has something to do with weather. Now, the other place that has something to do with the weather is Greenland. Yet again, back to World War II, there was what was called the Weather Wars, where Nazis were set up somewhere in Greenland or on these islands, and it had something to do with weather. And there was a lot of battles going on here with the Allies and the Nazis, and weather stations, and it had something to do with the weather. Yet again, it's not something that's really talked about in the mainstream history of World War II. The conspiracy side of World War II talks about this a lot. And yeah, there's probably some truth to it. Now, if you want to hear my opinion, behind closed doors, Nazi Germany was actually a part of the British Empire and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into that now. So I don't believe they were actually fighting. They were probably all working together here. And there was probably something to do with the weather here. Like, we don't hear about this country, the Greenland. Like, what the fuck's going on with it? Who owns it? What are they doing with it? How come it's never ever spoken about? There's nothing ever going on there. There's a good chance if they do have the weather weapons, they're somewhere around here. And we all automatically think of some sort of giant like radar dish or cannon that's firing up microwaves into the sky. Maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe it's underneath the ocean. Maybe we have kind of like the equivalent of jet streams that are in the sky. We have them under the ocean. And maybe they can put certain, I don't know, some sort of technology they use. They can just hit certain of these water streams that go under the ocean. They can just turn up, and perhaps they've mapped all that stuff out. And this is now getting into the whole topic of Atlantis and high technologies and that stuff. I don't want to go too far into that shit. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up. Like I said, I might check out Sicily at some point, whether the drought is over now, how bad it is. Yeah, again, it's not really mainstream. No one's really talking about it. At this moment in time, Trump has won the presidency of America, and that's the main topic. Like I said, Ukraine's back in the headlines. So little things like this, although it might be interesting to me, the world doesn't really give a fuck about flooding in Spain and droughts in Italy. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.